last video, you saw I did a battery, which is nothing. But the reason I did that battery is because this car, which is only 2 years old, I didn't think I'd have to replace the battery. So with replacing the battery so soon, I knew I was gonna have to troubleshoot what was causing it. So here's a second video of that theme. But what sucked about replacing the battery in this car is the actual door open is not actually like a pull, it's actually a button, which you see in a lot of newer cars. It's just an electronic unlock. There is a keyhole in here. You pop this off and there's a little key and you turn this and it'll mechanically open the door. Then from there, you pull the handle in here and then you go through the seats to get to the trunk access. And then you can open your trunk by pulling the little pull handle in the back. But when I did the PPF on the car when I first got it, so this is satin black PPF, everybody. Yes, it's not this color naturally. More work that I've done to this car. I took all of this interior panel out to get like this off and a couple other things off of the back so the PPF would sit properly and not have any lines. When I put this back on like an idiot, I forgot to make sure that this was sticking out so I can actually pull. So here I am laying under or through the seat to the trunk, trying to pry this open. I broke a couple of the clips, y'all. Yeah, I screwed this up. But anyways, when I got out of there, I was able to pop this and actually reach under this to pull this to get the trunk open. But anyways, all of that to try to figure out how to get to my battery. And yes, the battery in all CT5s, even the regular CT5, is in the trunk. So it sits over here. So that's why I had to go all the way through the trunk to get to the battery. But with all that, guess what's causing me this issue? Yes, you're looking at them. Those gauges. So those gauges are supposed to work on OBD and just get powered when the OBD is on. But I guess some cars, the Cadillac being one of them, sporadically has the OBD turn on. I know that the brake system in the car checks itself every now and then, and a few other things check itself every now and then. So I guess that sends a signal through the OBD and turns this on. So I saw some posts online of people having the same issue in some Chargers and some other cars. So even after the new battery, I was troubleshooting just to make sure maybe I did have a dead battery, but it was losing about 0.13 or like 0.13 volts every day. So I would check every day and the voltage was just dropping and dropping and dropping. So I've been trickle charging and actually leaving this unplugged when I'm not driving the car. So I don't drive it that much anymore because I usually drive Megan, the Mazda. But today what we're about to do is actually tap into the fuse box to give this power from the accessories. So this is the type of fuse that's in the Blackwing. I've never seen these mini, I think it's a micro triple or micro 3 types fuse. Never seen these, but got this off Amazon, and be warned, I'll put the right part number in there. But if you look on the side over here, you see how this dips in? The other ones I got didn't dip in, so this didn't even fit. So I had to get a different set of them. But I'm putting this in the car today to get power from the fuse box to these gauges. So they'll no longer power up off the OBD, they'll power up off of the ignition when that fuse pops on. So that's today's process. Let's get to it. So of course the first step, I'm gonna take this bolt off again and just pop these out. I've already slid these out, and as shown in the last video, I'd use some Tessa tape around these to get this to sit in here evenly. They gave me some little tape to put up here to fill that, but it would have had the gauge sitting not centered, but the Tessa tape lets it be centered. So I pulled both gauges out. So that's the first step. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that little bolt out of here and then pop this cover off and take these two gauges out. So got the first gauge out, and I've also popped this panel off. So this whole thing's gonna come out because I got to route wires through here, which is not too hard. But wanted to show something. When you do this, if you're gonna route this to the 12 volts, you got to remove this jumper. So that jumper actually jumps, I'm assuming on the board, the 12 volts from OBD to the 12 volt power rail on the board. So you disconnect that, and now the 12 volt power rail is going to come from this connector here, which they gave you some connectors, I'll show it in a second, that do the analog 5 volts. So if you're running any extra sensors, you can run into here, plus the 12 volts if you're going to power it from the fuse box. So that's what I'm going to run on right now, is getting this the rest of the way out and removing these jumpers. Okay, after a whole bunch of testing around here, I had the taps, so these little fuse taps, so these things for this style of fuse, and also there's these ones also. So there's two different fuses that are in here. So I had that style, so I checked all of these and all of these ones up here, the little ones up top, and none of those are accessory. So the only thing that was accessory is this 3-prong fuse thing, which I didn't have. So as I said, I got these off Amazon. And then after testing around, if you look at this, so this row here, if you look at where my finger is, you can see in the middle of that, there's metal running all the way through. So all of these ones up top are actually batteries. So these are 12 volts all day. All these at the bottom are accessories. So they only turn on when the ignition turns on. So I'll show you all that right now by go ahead and tapping into it. Got the fuse tap in there and it's routed. I'm gonna route it better, of course. I'll probably route it through this with this cable all the way up. And then it's gonna have to come up here at the end. But it's in there. I've got this splice on there that I'm not gonna use, this little butt splice. I've got better splices, but for now, so I don't have metal just floating around that could short out, I'm using that as pretty much a shield. But you can see I've got my handy dandy multimeter, got it. Actually the positive connected to negative and the negative is just right here in my hand. So it's gonna read negative voltage, but that doesn't even matter. If I go in here, you can see I got 0.015, so, you know, and nothing. So what is that? 15 microvolts. But that means that it's grounded out and there's no voltage there. But if I press and hold my ignition button for a while, the car turns on and everything turns on with it, which is great, but not the engine because I'm in my garage and I don't want the engine on. So now, still floating around, if I go ahead and connect to this, I now have 12 volts, negative 12 volts, but you know, that's positive 12 volts because of our situation. So I know I've got the right spot. So now I've got to splice into that and route a wire up to all the way up to here to connect to the gauges, and I'm pretty much done. Pretty simple task, but wanted people with Cadillacs to know they should be doing this instead of routing from the OBD reader because they're probably killing their battery. So from my avionics days, I really like these type of crimps. So it's a environmental crimp meant for aviation, so not really meant for cars. There it is, it zoomed in finally. But this is a really good crimp. You know it's actually on there. And then it has this heat shrink over the top, which you know you heat shrink it on. So you know this is not going anywhere. Now I can't do this one-handed, I've tried before, but you do have to buy this crimp, which they sell on Amazon. It's a little bit expensive, so most people aren't gonna do this, but I love this, so I use these all the time. So these are the crimps I use, but a normal butt splice, wherever that butt splice went, I cut it off. It's on the ground somewhere. But normal butt splice works fine, but me being anal, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. I'll show you the final product in a second. Okay, I'll actually be able to do this one-handed because the splice side is actually sitting inside of the crimp tool. So you can see it's sitting in there, and that's what it sits after you crimp the first side. I've got the wire totally sitting on the other side. And after you have it in there, you just crimp until you can't crimp anymore. And then after you're done crimping, it releases. So that's all you do. So I'll take this out of here and show you what it looks like when it's done. All right, so when you're done with this, I'm trying to get this to zoom in on this, but it's not zooming very well. Maybe if I zoom out and zoom in with the camera, there we go. Yeah, so we're gonna start the video here. So once you crimp this, you see that this is crimped properly because it has a little crimp marks, which are great. This is moving all over the place, so I'm zoomed in really far. But you also have wires in that center spot. So you can actually see some wires. Let's see if I can zoom in some more. So there's wires in that crimp spot. So you know you have wires in there. You can give this as much of a tug as you want. It's not coming out unless you actually break the wire. So that's perfect. And then you have this heat shrink that you're gonna put over it, and you just heat shrink that on. And then you know it's like actually environmentally sealed. There's no water getting in here. You don't have to worry about any corrosion or anything. Little overkill, but this is the way I like doing my wiring. All right, so everything's wired up. So you can see my little splice, and it's environmentally sealed. You can see that's heat shrunk, but it's got that glue on both ends. So you see a bulge on both ends. So those bulges actually environmentally seal it. And I've got the same thing down there with the little bulges at the end that environmentally seal it. So those are connected. I do have too much wire, as you can see over here, but I'll be able to tuck some of it into the back of the gauge pod and some other places. And I wasn't sure the complete length. I just wanted it to reach the gauges all together. So I can tuck some of that back and make it work. I'm not worried about that. And then I'll zip tie it wherever I need to or figure that out. But moment of truth, I've got no gauges right now. Let's see if I turn this on, do I get some gauges? Hold the button for 5 seconds. We get some gauge activity up here. There we go, we got noises. And I've got nothing, but these usually take a little bit to turn on. So let's see, did I break them? Did they not work? That's not good. Take a while usually to turn on, but I was hoping they'd turn on already. So maybe I'm missing something. Boo. What am I missing? All right, well, guess it didn't work. So back to the drawing board. Got to check and see if I'm getting 12 volts up here.
Come on, man.
All right, troubleshooting time. Let's get it. Well, OBD gauges won't work if the OBD reader is not plugged in. So if you watched the last video, this was not connected, which means the gauges won't turn on. So let's try this again. No gauges. Gonna hold this button for 5 seconds. Holding, let's see what I get. Got all that. And let's see if I get any gauges this time. Hopefully I do. As I said before, these take forever to turn on usually. Aha! I've got gauges. Yay, let's see if they're still on the same thing I had them on before. Or do I gotta reset some stuff? Nope, they're on the same readings I had them before. So I had battery, because I had battery problems, so now I know my battery voltage, but I can change that because it should be fine. Lambda and my inlet temperatures. So we've got gauges, everything works. Now I just need to put all this back together and clean all this up. Yay, successful stuff. All right, so the gauges are in the car. They look nice and pretty. They'd be looking at me dead in the face if I was sitting in here, and they look pretty even. And even if they're not perfectly even, I could just go ahead and rotate them and get them even as I drive. So I'll figure that out later. But I've got them in there. This is nice and factory fresh looking and looks like it's supposed to be there. I've got the panel back on, and the wires, I routed them as best I could, so they should be perfectly fine. But the other thing, that spiral wrap you saw in it, not only pulls the wires together, but if the wires are rubbing against anything, the spiral wrap will take the damage instead of the wires. But I'll pop this off in a couple weeks and see how they look. But let's go ahead and test out the gauges, which I've already tested. So you hold this for 5 seconds, and as soon as the gauges get power, the light will pop on. So there you go. So now you know they're booting up, and they take forever to boot. So while they are booting, I'll explain what I think happened to me. So with me running 2 gauges, I am losing 0.16 volts per day. That's about my average per day I was losing as I was testing this. So with me losing 0.16 volts per day, I am dropping drastically faster than all my Blackwing friends who only wanted 1 gauge, who will probably be dropping about 0.08 volts per day. So anyways, the gauges are back up. It's about where I had it before. Had my temperatures over here, had my battery voltage up there, which is 11.9, which means it needs to be trickle charged, which I'm going to do anyways. And then lambda, which is air fuel ratios there. So the gauges are up. Let's go ahead and turn this off so it stops beeping at me. But yes, back to my explanation. So with me dropping 0.16 volts per day and not trickle charging the battery that often, because I didn't think I needed to, because it's got a massive battery. Now it is an AGM, so you know, if it's an AGM, you are supposed to trickle charge every now and then, and this battery charger or trickle charger does AGM. So I am going to go ahead and hook that up to here, which is nice about the Blackwing. It has a charging or jumper set up here. So there's ground right here, and then you have positive right there. So I can jumper it from here, but I also can trickle charge it from here. And I also can check the voltage here every day. So I can just pop my voltmeter on here and just check what the voltage is every day. So now I'm going to trickle charge it overnight and let this get fully charged back up. And then I'll check it every day to make sure it's not dropping. But back to my explanation. So what I think was happening is with me dropping 0.16 volts per day, that's pretty much, we're gonna just round up to 0.2 because I'm not trying to do the math at 0.15. I'm losing in 14 days, I'm losing about 3 volts over 14 days. My friends that are 1 gauge are losing 0.08 volts per day. So they're losing about 1.5, yeah, about 1.4 actually, 1.4 volts per 2 weeks. So in a 2-week period, if I started at 12 volts, I am starting at 9 volts. At 9 volts, the car's not gonna do anything, which it pretty much did. It just looked at me when I tried to start it. Like, well, I couldn't even open the door. Like when you walk into the car, it gives you nice little pretty lights. It didn't give me anything. Nothing worked. So my battery was probably at 0.9 or 0.8 or something, or 9 volts or 8 volts or something stupid. While my friends who have a Blackwing, if they sat for 2 weeks with 1 gauge, they would be at 10, maybe 10.5 volts. So 10.5 volts, the car will still do stuff. It might not actually start. It might give you a little bit of a before it starts, but it would to do something. So they would be able to figure it out. But with me not driving this as much, I mean, I pretty much drive this Megan, the Mazda, all the time. And then when the Skyline was here, I was driving the Skyline a lot. This kind of just sat to the side. You know, I love Ventress. She is sexy. I do love you, Ventress. But she just kind of sat there. So that's what killed my battery. Now, I do love these gauges. But now knowing this, I wish I'd have just did this install at the beginning because you saw how easy it is. So my recommendation is, yes, get the gauges. They give you a whole bunch of extra readings. Yes, the Blackwing has a lot of readings on the gauges already, but these extra gauges give me even more readings. And who wouldn't want that? But if you're going to do this install, even if you think it's going to work on your OBD reader, just go ahead and plug it into your fuse box because it's a simple process and you don't even have to worry about this. But overall, another DIY project done and a really easy one. Oh yeah, one other quick thing before we end this video. Don't buy this from GM or Cadillac. They sell one that's exactly the name I'm saying, but it'll have a nice little Cadillac logo here or GM logo. That's great. But you can buy this from Amazon for like 60, 70 bucks or pay them like 200 for it. I mean, you do the math, but it's exactly the same thing. They just rebranded it. It's just white labeled Cadillac, but it's the same thing. So go ahead and do that and don't buy it from them. And then as this charges, it's going to go through all these little numbers. It starts at 3 and it's testing itself out. And then as slowly, and I'm talking about slowly, it's probably going to take all night. It'll get all the way up until it gets to green right there, and then it'll be done trickle charging. So I'm just going to leave this on here all night and let this trickle charge, but mission complete.